Hello Trinity family, it's me Ryan and it's time for another Quarantine Daily Video Devotional. Well, the reopening of our state has been on my mind a lot these past few days. I'm sure it's been on yours as well. And many of you are wondering, well, when is our church going to reopen? I know a lot of you are chomping at the bit to get back together with our church family and worship together once again. This is actually a discussion that our leadership has already been having. Last week I sent an email to our church council and to our deacons, and we've already started talking about a plan to reopen and what might be best for our context, which is what every church has to do right now. Every church has to decide what's best for us and our people and our particulars. Well, here's our particulars. Majority of our church are over 65, and lots of us have a chronic illness of some kind. And although Governor Abbott opened up churches to really just decide for themselves what they're going to do, he did advise them to follow some of the guidelines set out by the state of Texas, one of those being only 25% capacity, and the other one being, if you're 65 and older, to go ahead and continue to worship from home. So because that is our context in our church, we would like to see, or we would like to continue doing our worship from home at least for a couple more weeks until we see what the virus does. With the reopening around the state, I'm interested to see, will the virus go up or will the number of cases go down, and then reevaluate as we go on. The reason we're doing this is because we love you and we care about you and your safety. So please keep that in mind. We want to make sure that when we meet back together, you are going to be well taken care of and we didn't rush into anything foolishly, which is just a consistent Christian principle taught by Jesus and Paul, that we care more about others than we do about ourselves, which has really boggled my mind a little bit, if I can be frank, with all the protesters around our nation. It seems bizarre to me that a person would call themselves a Christian and care more about their own personal liberties than the other person. That just seems highly inconsistent with what Scripture teaches across the board. And the scripture I'm reading today comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and it goes into chapter 11 as well, but it begins in chapter 10 verses 23, and it goes all the way to chapter 11 verse 1. So we're going to read this passage together, and I invite you to reflect on what Paul says here about our personal liberties and how that affects other people. All things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Do not seek your own advantage, but that of the other. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. For the earth and its fullness are the Lord's. If an unbeliever invites you to a meal and you are disposed to go, eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. But if someone says to you, "This has been offered in sacrifice," then do not eat it, out of consideration for the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. I mean the other's conscience, not your own. For why should my liberty be subject to the judgment of someone else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why should I be denounced because of that for which I give thanks? So, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do everything for the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God, just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many, so that they may be saved. Be imitators of me as I am of Christ. Paul consistently throughout this letter to the 1 Corinthians, consistently throughout all of his corpus, writes about giving up our personal freedoms for the benefit of somebody else. In this particular circumstance, it was meat that had been sacrificed to idols. In the ancient world, meat was a rarity. People didn't eat a lot of meat, so when you got the opportunity to eat a big old steak, you took advantage of that. But very often, the cows that the steak came from were used in idolatrous worship practices. And so, it could be highly confusing to either weak Christians or non-Christians to see a Christian eating meat that had been sacrificed to idols. Paul's whole argument is, we know that idols aren't anything. Idols are false gods. There's only one true God. So technically, eating a meat that's been sacrificed to an idol, that doesn't mean anything, because idols are nothing. It's not a bad thing to do. And yet, Paul says, but would you not do it anyway? Would you not eat that meat that's been sacrificed to idols? Don't do it. Not because of the thing itself, but because it could cause somebody else to stumble. It could hurt somebody else. And that is just a Pauline principle. Sacrifice your own liberties, sacrifice your own freedoms for the benefit of other people. That's a guiding Pauline principle that he inherited, obviously, from Jesus, who gives up his life, the ultimate freedom, the ultimate liberty, so that he could save the many. That's who we Christians are called to be. And so as we decide how we're going to approach our reopen and how we're going to approach getting back together, I just want y'all to know that is a principle that's guiding me, it's guiding our church council, and it's guiding our deacons. We are prayerfully trying to help or trying to figure out how to best do this with you in mind. So please be patient with us. I invite you to pray with us as well. Right now we need to bathe ourselves in prayer that when we do get back together, and when we get back together, we want to make it a big, big celebration. But when we do get back together, we want to make sure that it's done in the best possible way for the majority of our people. So I love you. Hang in there. If you're lonely and you're just missing that koinonia and fellowship, we're doing another koinonia video meetup tomorrow at 6 p.m. Here's the information. Somewhere down here at the bottom of the screen, you have to type in a meeting ID and you have to type in a password. You can be a part of that on your phone. You can be a part of that just by calling in. You can be a part of that on your computer. We had 6 people join us last week, but I'd love it if you join us this Wednesday night. Again, that's tomorrow, 6 p.m., and get a little bit of that social interaction that we're all just missing so much. But anyways, I love you. I'm praying for you, and I want the best for you always. Give me a call if you need anything. Have a great day.